I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. You know, if you've traveled outside of Oregon, you know there are lots of states with toll roads on their busy roads. I was looking at a map today. Best I can tell, there are probably only 13 states in the lower 48 that don't have any tolls. So it does seem likely, barring something huge, that Oregon is going to get tolls on our interstates. Which made me wonder, what can we look forward to? Tolling, that's our big story tonight. Yes, tolls ahead. Hey, we're going to try something a little bit different tonight. We've talked about tolling many times over the last several months. Most of our reports have carried tough questions and lots of objections from local leaders in communities near the tolls. We've also shared the skepticism many of you have. But we do have to recognize that there are tolling programs all over America for a reason. So tonight we're going to try and drop the skepticism just a little bit. We're going to have a discussion with Brendan Finn. He's the director of the Urban Mobility Office for the Oregon Department of Transportation. I know, it's a fancy title. It means that he's in charge of the tolling programs for everything besides the new interstate bridge. That's somebody else, but he's got everything else. He's been working to sell the tolling program to folks for a long time, so I figured, you know what the heck? Let's hear what he has to say. My first question was, why are the tolls needed?
Meant to do a couple of different things. One is to raise revenue for needed investments. The other thing is to also kind of manage demand on some of the systems so we can make the most of our infrastructure. It's a key component that's been used in other places around the country and seen a lot of success. I understand the unpopularity of it when it first comes out. What we really need to do to the rest of the region, and especially those impacted cities around the tolling areas, is that there's going to be a real return on investment. You are going to see a better system, a more reliable system, and a system that's safe, a system that can withstand an earthquake. Right now, our system can't. We're vulnerable. So one of the things that's really important to us when we talk about tolling is one of the things that's very important to us as an agency. The most important thing is keeping Oregonians safe.
Okay, so reliability and safety, we'll dig into those in a moment. But just in case you've missed our earlier stories, here's what we're talking about. Tolls are coming to the Portland area in a big way. The new interstate bridge will have tolling to pay the billions it will cost to build. That's not part of our news story tonight, though, because there is also new tolling on the way. What we're focused on are tolls that will be put on Interstate 205 on the Abernathy and Tualatin bridges. Those tolls will help pay the cost of upgrading the bridges and adding a third lane in each direction. Additional tolls will be placed somewhere along 205 between the Willamette River and the Columbia River to the north. On top of that, there will be tolls on I-5 somewhere in the Portland area, likely near the Rose Quarter. Those tolls will help pay for the widening projects there and the covering of the freeway in that area. The tolls were approved by Oregon lawmakers back in 2017. Okay, now back to our conversation. We're talking with Brendan Finn, who's in charge of tolling for ODOT. He's stressing the need to make bridges in the tolling area safer, including the Abernathy, which stretches above the Willamette River at Oregon City.
I drive over the Abernathy Bridge with my family. I know that it's going to fall if we have a major earthquake. I don't know if everybody who drives over that bridge knows that, but it scares me, and I know that that's one of the more important things that we provide for those of us in public services, keeping people safe. So again, understanding folks aren't wild about tolling, but what we really need to tell them is the benefits and the benefits it's going to have for generations to come.
And I think that people generally get the idea of, okay, we're going to spend money for this thing. We need to make some money to pay for that because it's super expensive. But then those are not going to go away, right? The tolls there.
No, the tolls there are meant to do two things. And I guess I will say that the tolls will pay for, the construction will be paid through bonding. So not to get into too much of the financial planning details, but think about your mortgage. A lot of people get a 30-year mortgage. We're getting a 30-year mortgage to pay off this bridge through the tolling program. So after 30 years, will leaders at that time decide whether to keep the tolls on or take them off? That's a question for future generations, Pat.
Okay. Oh, so you're getting basically a 30-year advance, be paid back through the tolling.
That's correct.
And it's, okay.
And we haven't decided whether it's 25-year or 30-year. Right now, our financial team, planning team, is looking at what's the best return for Oregonians.
Okay. Fair enough. The translation, tolling may or may not be there forever, but it will be there for 25 or 30 years. So, you know, if you're my age or older, that's kind of like forever. I asked Finn how much the tolls will cost and how many tolls we'll have to pay along 205 or I-5. He said he doesn't know for sure, but that the numbers will be out next summer, at least for the Abernathy Bridge area. Okay, but we've reported that ODOT is using a working assumption of $2 per bridge during rush hour as their highest toll on I-205. Now, besides the cost, many worry about drivers getting off the interstates to avoid the tolls.
Well, we will address the people that are bailing off by fixing that system so it flows better, by making improvements to that existing system. So at the end of the day, these municipalities, these cities and towns around the Portland metropolitan region will have an improved system.
So that when they bail off into Oregon City, it'll be a smoother flow to get through there quickly? That's what you're
right.
saying?
Yeah, we kind of do it on an intersection by intersection basis, and so we have a way of rating those, and so we'll make sure that it stays at a certain rating so that there'll be a flow of traffic.
As ODOT's tolling guru, Finn says the agency has promised to continue monitoring Oregon City and West Linn to make sure that their solutions are working, and if they're not, to find new approaches to fix the problems. Let's talk about congestion pricing a little bit and how that will change things, because like on 205, you're adding a lane each way, which seems to me would take care of congestion, but I know that you folks believe that the tolls will also help with the smooth flow.
Yeah, both, they complement each other. So with both of them, with tolling and adding the missing third lane, as we like to say on I-205, we'll be able to take what was going to be 14 hours of congestion in 2045 and make that 2 hours of congestion. So you understand the magnitude. So both of them combined, you really get the best use of the infrastructure that we have, because we know we can't build our way out of congestion. We want to build the right system that can serve us for the next 2 generations. We're taking on something that we're hoping will create something for the next 50 years.
And how do you know it will shrink it down to 2 hours?
Well, this is through the modeling and through the science. It's by understanding how much growth is going to be happening, what kind of traffics we're seeing now. So the engineers sit down and crunch these numbers using the modeling that the entire region has agreed upon to say, yes, this is what will happen, and this is the impacts and the results of those improvements.
And do you have studies that show that prices, an extra 50 cents here, extra $1 there, really does impact the flow?
We do. There is, because it's been implemented in many other parts of the United States, we do have a lot of research on exactly what that calibration does to the price of levels of congestion and people actually changing their trip. It's only a small percentage we need to decrease to actually create a free-flowing network. Our infrastructure can work the best, and it's the most efficient way to do it. How small a percentage? About 5% usually is the kind of rule of thumb. Yeah, if you get 5% of those trips that are out there, and it's been said that almost 30 of those trips that are happening are discretionary, where people could take those trips at another time. 30% of the 100% that's on there? Correct. Those people don't have to be there at that moment? Yeah, but there is 70%, which we fully appreciate, that have to be there on that time to either get to work, get to a medical appointment. They can't not be on using the system at that period of time. That's why we really want to make sure we're not punishing those that are experiencing low incomes. Which then does bring the question of low-income drivers. Finn, who again is ODOT's tolling leader, says the agency is studying the best way to help those drivers with paying the tolls. We are the first in the nation, I do like to brag a little bit about this, that has considered that and plan on implementing a low-income discount or exemption program prior to actually turning on tolls. Obviously, there's hundreds of toll programs throughout the nation. None of them have actually contemplated this prior to implementation of a toll program. So we've heard that message loud and clear from the public, from elected leadership from around the region, and we look forward to implementing that.
So I'd hoped he would give us some specific details on that, but apparently not yet. He did say the most likely scenario is that the discount program will tap into the welfare system that currently helps low-income people, and that people who are in that system would automatically qualify for reduced or possibly even free tolls. Finally, he wants you to know that the tolls are necessary to improve a system that is going to last a long time.
It'll be a benefit. People will see a benefit to the system. It'll make it easier for them to get around, easier to get to their appointments, easier to get their kids to soccer games and be on time. So that's the real benefit we want to articulate to everyone.
Okay, what do you think? Did he sell you? Do you want to ask him more questions in person, by the way? Tomorrow, he's going to be at the Charbonneau Country Club. That's tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. He'll be presenting information about the tolling plan. I'm sure he'd love to meet you. You can go. It's open to the public. I'll reserve my opinion for now, but I want to hear from you what you think about all this. Send me an email. The address is thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. I look forward to hearing from you. Up next on The Story, we're headed back to Eastern Oregon and the town of Prairie City in Grant County. Our focus tonight is on the lone school there, preschool through 12th grade, and the many differences from schools in the metro area.
It's just different. And some people have a hard time grasping that concept, and that's okay.
Our culture, we're just such a close-knit family here at our school.
How do they adapt to ensure kids get a normal school experience? From sports to teachers to finding funding, the area's future is at stake. That's next when The Story returns. Recently, I took a listening tour to Eastern Oregon to find out why folks out there are so upset about the urban-rural divide. I learned a lot. As part of that, we also visited the tiny town of Prairie City in Grant County. The population there is 909 people. I wanted to see the cultural differences in a small school compared to the big schools in our area. We were not able to fit that story into our week of reports on Eastern Oregon, but I really thought you should know about the school. It's very cool. So here it is. What I found is an institution of learning that is thriving thanks to innovative leadership and determination. When Prairie City's school building was built 112 years ago, it was a bustling place full of people chasing the gold that was discovered nearby. Then came a timber boom and then a timber bust. And through it all, there was ranching and farming. You can still see the influence today. These are some of the school's chickens. Those red things on the beaks keep them from pecking each other. Students raise the chickens as part of their schooling.
All of the eggs out of here go to our cafeteria.
They also raise hogs, which will eventually be killed and served up in the school cafeteria.
It's just different. And some people have a hard time grasping that concept, and that's okay. You gotta move. We know the drill.
Amanda Rockhill grew up here and graduated from Prairie City. She's now a teacher at the school.
I think that everybody needs to know where their food comes from. Their food doesn't just come from a grocery store. It comes from this. And that's my whole job here, is I teach little kids where food comes from. Really?
In past years, the school, which holds preschool through 12th grade, only had enough students for 8-man football. And some years, it's only been 6.
When my son was...
Chris Camarina is the school board chair. His son played on that team.
So they called him the Iron Man 8. They played both ways. You know, if somebody got hurt, that was kind of the end of the game.
5 years ago, there were just 130 students. A graduating class of 10 was not unusual. But that's changing now.
Crisscross applesauce.
The school population has more than doubled in 5 years to 270 students. You can see it in the preschool class. What used to be only a handful of kids is now a full class of 18. Next year, it may expand to 25.
Okay, there you go.
Jill Wright has delighted little ones as their preschool teacher for 33 years here.
Are you ready, Mr. Miles?
She said expanding the hours to full-day preschool 3 years ago began the growth, and the small-town culture has kept it going.
And I think our culture, we're just such a close-knit family here at our school, and I'm very honored to be working at our school. And
you can tell she cares deeply.
Yeah, that's what we need on this guy.
In the upper-level electives, you can still see the small school numbers. Computer science instructor Jake Lopez says 3 to 5 kids in a class is typical. This is a robotics group.
We could hook it up.
He works hard to adapt the science to his students' lifestyle.
You know, computer science especially bleeds into a lot of different disciplines, farming, ranching, forestry, you name it. It's the tentacles of technology is getting into everything.
I have probably the best students, I think, in the state.
I met Lindy Cruz in her ag classroom where they're raising chicks. She also attended this school and is still connected to the land.
I'm a 6th-generation cattle rancher here as well as ag teacher, and so, some of the especially legislation that goes through sometimes can impact us in a negative way. Unless you were boots on the ground in Eastern Oregon on a ranch, on a farm, hay ranch, even if you live in rural Prairie City, without kind of coming out here and understanding. But I think it goes both ways too. I think that, people from Eastern Oregon need to understand both sides, and it shouldn't be East versus West. We need to have a common ground. I think that's where our state's been divided.
She's done some thinking about how to get urban and rural communities to understand each other.
What would be most impactful is to get them out on the ranches, get them out on the farms, take them in the downtown, Portland, Salem businesses, and get people exposed, and do like a day in the life of a rancher, a day in the life of, and maybe it would be needed to do more than just a day. Maybe a politician comes and spends a week with a ranching family or a farming family, and maybe the Eastern Oregon representatives, a day in the life of a small business owner in Portland.
I think that's been a big difference.
Casey Hallgarth is the superintendent and the principal.
When you come here, the big difference is the funding and what's available.
He's learned to navigate on a limited budget.
We don't have the tax base here to pass the bonds like over on the west side. So, when we run into leaky roofs or, something that needs to be fixed, we usually have to plan 2-3 years out, sock it away and then to pay for it. So.
He's also made strategic alliances with online schools, including Oregon Connections Academy. Hallgarth said Prairie City's affiliation with the school now has roughly 1,300 students. Prairie City gets a fee for each student, but he also likes that it's a convenient option for students who don't do well in a traditional classroom. Prairie City has also signed on with Oregon Preparatory Academy, and that program is growing as well. And then there is the grant writing. He applies for lots of grants to help pay for things at the school.
But without the grants, I mean, you wouldn't see a lot of these improvements, unfortunately. And that's just because of the, like I said, the tax base and the funding and the way it works. And, you know, you only get so much money per kid, and when you don't have a lot of kids.
It doesn't go far. He makes up for it with grants. Over the last 5 years, he's secured more than $7 million in grants for Prairie City School. That is what it takes to run a thriving school in small-town Oregon. I have to say, I really love being in Prairie City. It seems like a fantastic community, thanks to everybody who talked to me out there. And I love that idea of lawmakers from the big city spending a week living on an Eastern Oregon ranch. I really hope somebody starts an exchange program like that. So the folks in the city and the folks in the country can kind of get to know each other, maybe understand each other better. By the way, if you missed any of our Greater Idaho series, we have a full special report streaming right now on KGW+. That's our streaming app on Roku and Amazon Fire. And if you don't have one of those devices, you can always find our content on the KGW YouTube page. Just scroll down and look for The Story. Still to come on The Story, we're revisiting the foster care clash that we brought you yesterday. A Malheur County mom is suing the state after being denied on a foster care application for 2 kids, saying the state's standards for supporting LGBTQ+ children go against her religious beliefs. We'll share some of your thoughts when we come back. A federal lawsuit is alleging religious discrimination by the state of Oregon. That comes after a mom in Malheur County was told no when she wanted to adopt 2 children. They are in the foster care system. She was denied by the state because she disagrees with the state requirements that she support the sexual orientation or gender identity of her adopted children. She says that would go against her religious beliefs. Jessica Bates has 5 biological kids already. She's a single mom. Her husband was killed in a car crash in 2017. She's also a Christian. And she says that after listening to the radio one day, God told her to adopt more kids. She decided she wanted to adopt 2 kids. But when Jessica went to fill out forms for her home evaluation, she got hung up on one section. Oregon's Department of Human Services requires that certified foster homes respect, accept, and support the race, ethnicity, cultural identities, national origin, immigration status, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, disability, spiritual beliefs, and socioeconomic status of a child. She wrote to the person handling her application, "I need to let you know I cannot support this behavior in a child. I have no problem loving them and accepting them as they are. but I would not encourage them in this behavior. I believe God gives us our gender, sex, and it's not something we get to choose. She went on to say that she believes that providing gender-affirming medical care like hormone shots is child abuse. After that, Bates' application to become a foster parent was denied. We asked for your thoughts on this last night. Your responses show that we have a big tent here where all thoughts are welcome. The responses ran the gamut from one side of the political spectrum all the way over to the other. And my, oh my, several of you are fired up.
I'm calling about the foster mom who was denied adopting children because she didn't agree with giving them hormone shots and things. That's so ridiculous. I mean, come on. So kids should be able to just, anyway, yeah, she should be able to freaking adopt children, and I think it's absolute bull. So that's my opinion. Bye.
Having worked for many years with children in need, children in corrections as well, I am absolutely in favor of the state sticking by its guns with this, and the insistence that somehow people of a particular Christian viewpoint have values that are beyond all the rest of us are so, so definitely offensive that I cannot imagine that this is anything other than unfair.
Our comments were about a 70-30 split, with the majority of viewers agreeing the state is doing the right thing.
I do not believe that someone's religious beliefs supersede the state's laws regarding being a foster parent. That's ridiculous. This is a government that is non-religious. I don't care what you believe.
And Julia says these individuals are free to hold any belief they wish to as a citizen, but that citizenship does not ensure their acceptance by a state agency that holds standards to protect children. And there's this from Dave. Why is this woman suing? This is ridiculous. If she's not willing to follow the guidelines, then she shouldn't do it. It's just that simple. But despite the majority of our viewers feeling that way, there were a good number of you thinking the opposite.
Prohibiting the fostering of two children in a perfectly wonderful home with somebody who cares about them and will take care of them is the most reasonable thing in the world for children who have been abandoned or who are alone in the world. Prohibiting that person from doing that because they have certain religious beliefs is discrimination as well. Who cares what their religion is? Yes. More important is taking care of the children, period.
And Randy says, my God, stop the insanity. She's trying to adopt the children, not raise them under the foster system. As a parent, it's her job to raise them in a loving, caring home as she would her biological children. She appears to be a caring woman. There are two children missing out. And how about this one from Kelly? It angers and saddens me that with so many children in need of foster care, a nice family is being deemed unfit simply because of their religious beliefs. It is a travesty to all children in the foster care system that loving homes like this one are no longer available to them. And many of you hope for a common ground between the two sides of the issue. We heard from several of you who agree with George, who says, if the child's old enough, a few simple questions would help place them in a compatible home. We need all the foster care families we can get. I'm sure there are plenty of kids in need that would welcome a foster family with various religious beliefs. So, what do you think? Did anything we covered here change your mind or maybe cement your opinion further? Let us know. Send an email. The address is thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. And of course, we're going to keep an eye on this lawsuit and let you know what happens from here. In the meantime, keep it right here. We're going to wrap things up right after this.
Coming up next at 6:30, cracking down on street racing. Who Oregon's governor is calling in to try to help Portland police respond to a growing problem. And another caught-on-camera escape for the second time in just a few months. A defendant races out of the Washington County Courthouse. What he did that allowed deputies to catch up. That's next at 6:30. Hope to see you then.
Well, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, the story, our story, that never ends. I'll see you tomorrow.